Alright guys, we're back again, and today we're talking about, finally, the Super Nintendo Classic. Now, we did a video where we talked about the announcement, but now we had the actual system and we played it. We just spent about an hour going through all the games and looking at each one individually, and I have to say, you know, from somebody who has an RGB setup and all that garbage in their house, the way the games look, first and foremost, is fantastic. You know, this is an HDMI system. If you don't know anything about this, or why people care, why this is such a hot topic, is because this is a system that you can plug into a modern television set. You got to remember the old Super Nintendo, if you want to show it, you would plug that in with like AV and composite, where this is now HDMI. You can plug it into a modern television, and the other amazing thing about this is that these games, if you wanted to get these games, each one of these games would be expensive to get, especially a game like Earthbound, something like that. That's why this thing is so worth it to get, is because you would spend a fortune trying to get these actual games, to buy a Super Nintendo. So you can just go out to your local, you know, store, your Walmart, your Target, and you can pick this up if you're able to get your hands on one. Now, we had a hard time getting our hands on one, but it's, you know, launch day. There's supposedly more available of these, but I think that this is a great purchase for anybody looking to play these games, because you can hook it into a modern television and because of the value.
Yeah, hey, I want to have a word with Nintendo on this thing. So, NES Mini comes out. No one can get them. A lot of scalpers are selling them. Now we're on to the Super Nintendo Mini. They know they sold 2 million units of the NES Mini. And yet today, I'm standing outside of a Target in the cold at 6 in the morning. I can see across the street the Best Buy. There's a line. Toys R Us, there's a line. Last night at Walmart, there's a line. There's all of these people, and these things are selling out. It really makes you wonder, because as I'm sitting in the lines, I'm listening to the conversations. And the conversations are people making eBay listings, people going on Craigslist, people talking about how much money they were going to make. Nowhere in the lines today did I hear anybody say, boy, I would love to play Super Mario Kart.
Yeah.
And that bothers me, because it's kind of become the hot item for scalpers.
To resell and stuff.
Rather than people being like, Super Metroid's awesome, Secret of Mana is great. Like, I think that the message has been lost.
Yeah, Ryan is so right. Same experience for me. I tried to get the system last night. I went to midnight. I went to Walmart. There was about 60 people in line, and we all looked at the front, and they brought them out, and they had 24 of them, and I was like 27 in line, so I didn't get one last night. We finally got it this morning, but you know, I guess they did print up more than the NES Classic, because we did get our hands on it, but you're so right. When I was waiting in line, same experience. Nobody's talking about, oh, I love Zelda, oh, you know, Star Fox. I heard nothing about the games. Everybody was like, oh, man, I gotta go on this site or this site so that I can pre-order one. And, oh, if in California at 3 a.m. I could order it online, and all these kind of stuff, people trying to get their hands on it. And it's like, what about, like, oh, you know what? Final Fantasy III is an awesome game, or, you know, nobody's having that conversation.
It brings me back to, like you think of, like, movies like American Psycho, with like the business cards and like the whole like culture. It's like they're supposed to be selling like stocks so people can have retirements and earn money and stuff, right. But really it's about like cocaine and like killing people. Yeah. I want it to be about Super Mario World is like getting back to the games. Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart, Super Metroid, Mega Man, Zelda. These are some of the greatest and most foundational titles of all time. And there's a package. I mean, you would lose your shit if it was 1995 and this package came out at the price that it came out. You would lose your shit. You're looking at this. You know, everybody goes and they say, oh, you could just get a Raspberry Pi. Oh, you know, you could go with a virtual console. There is power in being able to use this controller. This is a real Super Nintendo controller, but being able to use a controller that's like this having...
So the ones that came with it, they're the same size, I believe. We can actually double check right now. They're the same size, and they're actually, if now that I'm looking at it very closely, they are like slightly different. You can tell that on the remake, the L and R like aren't painted in, and it's like slightly different. But I just used it, and I play Super Nintendo, practically a couple times a week. I'll play it, and the controller that they released for the NES Classic and for the Super Nintendo Classic are both very, very nice. The one I didn't like was the one for the Famicom because it was too small. But one of our complaints about the NES Classic was that the cord, remember that, was too short, and you had to buy something in addition to that. Not so much the case with this one. There is a longer cord, although it's not so much longer.
So, you saw when I did this. I did this in the last video. And this cord, at least it gets out of the frame.
Yeah.
I think it's a foot longer, but this controller here is still like 2 feet longer than this one.
Yeah.
So it's not accurate to the console.
Yeah.
But it's still
better. It's better.
It's still good. It's better. The buttons. The biggest difference between the original controller is the buttons are shiny, and they're not as like convex and concave. Like the concaveness of the Y and X and the convexness of B and A are way more pronounced on the actual controller.
Yeah, the real controller, they're much less glossy. But this controller is pretty darn nice. I can't really complain too much about it. So let's talk about the actual games, because that's why we're here. So the games on the system, we already had talked about Star Fox 2, which we did a whole video about it. You can go check out that video if you want a longer explanation of the game. But essentially, it was not finished. Now they've re-released it on this, and it's an okay game. It's like somewhere in the middle of the road.
I would still play the original.
Yeah, me too. The original game's better, but the original game is included on this, I believe. Is it not?
Yeah, Star Fox.
Yeah, Star Fox. There it is. Star Fox is included.
In fact, when you first open this up, Star Fox 2 is not playable. You have to at least play the first level of Star Fox,
which takes 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's not a huge thing. And just to close out the controller discussion, they do have this cover here that shows the original controller ports, but you open this up and it uses the same controller ports that the Wiimotes and the NES Classic do, and you can still use the Wii Classic controllers, but you don't have to with this, because one of the biggest improvements from the NES Classic is it comes with 2 controllers. Whereas the NES Classic only came with 1.
I still have to say, after this, what would be nice if they took this same shell, they put on the Super Game Boy, and we get a Game Boy collection with more games. They would since it's Game Boy, they'd have to give you like 100 games or something. Right. The top 100 Game Boy games.
It would definitely be funny if it was just this shell with the Super Game Boy in it.
I would buy it.
That would be really cool. So, looking at the games that are in this collection, which ones would you most want to play today?
Okay, well, I'm thinking about it. Like, I already own most of these games, so for me, it might be a little different. But you're asking me basically what are my favorite games on here.
Well, we can talk about favorites, but there's games, they're all good.
All of these are good. Right,
games. But which one? If I handed this to you,
what one am I playing?
You're going on a long trip. Which one are you going to play right now?
For me personally, I would probably play Final Fantasy III. I'd be most in the mood to play that. Probably Super Ghouls and Ghosts, because it's a hard game, and you guys know I'm into it like that. And maybe Castlevania IV, although I find that game a little bit easy. I actually prefer the Dracula's Curse over that. Maybe Contra III, The Alien Wars, but I've already played through that. Super Mario Kart I love, but I need another person to play with that game. I don't usually play that by myself. So it's probably going to be Final Fantasy III.
I feel like I'm ready to play Super Mario RPG again.
Yeah.
Because the last time I played it, I got Super Mario RPG. My parents gave it to me around Easter. It was like Easter. I got the game. I played it. It was fun. And I'm ready to go back. So out of all the games in this package, the one that I will probably play through on this system, and maybe you'll get to see some of that on plays, is Super Mario RPG. Although Mike and I are really thinking about doing some Final Fantasy.
People are
stuff.
probably also surprised to hear me say that because you would probably expect me to say Link to the Past.
Right.
But the thing is, I played so much Link to the Past.
Right.
I want to play some Link to the Past randomizer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sort of step.
You want
past.
a new experience.
Yeah, I want the new experience.
I think it's funny. I feel like Super Punch Out is a very strong selection for this, but I feel like the NES Punch Out is so much more fun.
I like Super Punch Out, but yeah, I mean, you know, that's the case on a lot of things. So what else on here? I know you're a big Secret of Mana fan.
I am, yeah.
So that you got that, you got, you know, you can play Street Fighter. I mean, what a collection this is. It's an excellent collection. Just like the NES Classic, there are a few omissions to this, which I would have liked. I know people are going to say it was an arcade game, that's why I wasn't included, but everybody I knew growing up, if you owned a Super Nintendo, you had Turtles in Time. I get why it's not on there, because it's Ninja Turtles licensed and all that, but Final Fantasy, didn't they have to pay for licenses for some of these?
Oh yeah, so a lot of the games,
so,
I mean, from Ghouls and Ghosts to Final Fantasy.
So I don't think licensing is part of the argument. They could have paid for the license to get Ninja Turtles on there, and again, I get that it was an arcade game first, but, like, come on, Turtles in Time.
Yeah, definitely Turtles in Time.
And you were telling me earlier,
I would have liked to see, like, Final Fight.
Where's Final Fight?
Would be really good. Across the whole Super Nintendo library, there are some games that are very expensive and rarer that would probably be good inclusions. Like, I really think that you could see Metal Warriors on here. Mm-hmm. It's a later Konami title. It is like a AAA, like, nice title.
You know what?
And right now it's like $300 or something like that.
Along that same line, what would have been really good, an excellent game, and was my number one pick on my Super Nintendo top 20 favorite or obscure Super Nintendo games. They could have included Wild Guns, because that's a great co-op game, and to get that game, that's a very expensive game to get.
Right.
That would have been a nice inclusion. Something I would have really liked would have been. And I understand why they didn't do this, but Mario Paint would have been nice.
But then you need a mouse
to buy in addition. If they would have sold in addition a nice mouse, because Hyperkin just came out with a mouse that you can use with the original Super Nintendo to play Mario Paint with, which is something I really wanted. But I tried it out and I used it, and people ask me this all the time. I used it. It's not that great, unfortunately. Oh. So the original Super Nintendo mouse is still better. So if you want, it's still to this day, if you want to play Mario Paint, you still need the original system and the original mouse.
I'm a little disappointed that the closest we're coming to a space shooter on this is Star Fox. I really think
like to have like RType or Radius,
like R-type, super R-type, something like that. I mean, that's a genre that's not represented in current game systems, but was very integral to what the Super Nintendo is.
Yeah,
I think that would be really cool.
There's probably, I'm sure there'll be like people in the comments. There's probably a long list of other games that could have been included. But I will say, for the games that they have on here, this is a pretty solid collection of games.
It's pretty good.
I would recommend people buying this, unless you already own all the original games. If you're a collector and you have them all, of course you don't need it. But you know, for most people do not have all these games. It's a good buy.
I think that, you know, modern emulators have a lot of settings on them and a lot of things you can configure. I mean, this system has save states. It's very easy to use. It's intuitive. You want to go back to the menu, you just push reset like this. It'd be nice if there was a controller combination, but I mean, overall it's nice. I like this better than if they came out with, like, if you just bought the games on Wii U Virtual Console.
Yeah.
I like this better than that. I think for people who are saying, oh, well, just get an EverDrive or just get a Raspberry Pi, at the end of the day, those two things, it's copyright infringement. It's illegal. True. It's piracy. Like, you know, I will use emulators from time to time because my game library is in 3 buildings and it's all over the place.
I've actually never used that. So if you had a Raspberry Pi and you are doing it that way, how are people even... Can you plug a Super Nintendo controller in?
Yeah, how we have like the 8-bit do.
They're using that, which those are pretty good.
But I mean, the emulation on this is great.
Yeah,
it's a good package. My only complaint with it is the distribution model, how hard it is to get. Maybe price. Is this thing worth $80? I mean, that's like...
I mean, well, you know what, though?
Yeah.
I would argue that it is, because guess what? Earthbound, you want to get a copy of that on eBay.
What's that, like $200?
It's like hundreds of dollars
Just
for Earthbound. And you get all these other games.
Right.
And you get the system. And you get the controllers.
Both
and
controllers.
With longer cords. And
Both controllers.
It's worth it. It's worth
it.
It
is worth it. It's pretty cool. I wonder what we didn't test and we need to test is if I plug these into the NES Classic.
Oh, if they work?
If they work.
That's an
I bet you they
question.
do, because the Wiimotes do. The Wii Classic ones do. So that would be pretty cool.
One thing that I never tried yet, and I wanted to try it when we did the NES Classic, is to see if there was any lag. I wanted to fight Mike Tyson, because I can beat Tyson.
Right.
So I wanted to try it on the NES Classic and see if there was any lag. From what I heard, there isn't any lag, but I have to actually test that.
I would also like to see if these work with the Wii. So you can go back to the Wii or Wii U
I'd be interested to know.
play the virtual console.
I'd be interested to know.
Because
those are solid
There's like a Famicom version of this that exists that was a controller. I don't know if it was like Club Nintendo or it was some type of Japan only or something like that. But a Famicom Wii Classic controller exists. And I'm wondering if that's also compatible with this.
I don't know the answer to this. You can tell me. So if they're releasing this in Europe,
It's the other design. It's a Super Famicom design.
So a lot of people don't like the design of the American system. I like both of them.
Right.
I think they're both cool in their own right. I can understand why people, don't like this design, but I think they're both cool.
I remember going to Germany in the Super Nintendo era. I had my Game Gear with me. It was like 1995, something like that.
What games did you have for Game Gear?
I had Shinobi, the Shinobi that we played. I had Sonic. I had Woody Pop, which is Breakout.
Yeah, Woody Pop.
Right? Columns.
Yeah.
Because, of course, Columns.
I had Columns, too.
So I had some good stuff. I had, like, Desert Strike.
Desert Strike's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Games like that.
We should do Desert Strike. Yeah. I like that game.
That's really cool. But I remember going to Europe, and they had the Super Nintendo. But I had never seen a Super Famicom, like the gray.
Yeah.
Like the different shell and the color buttons. And all the games they had, because Germans love their strategy games. So all the games they had for demo, it wasn't like they had Mario in the demo unit. They had, it looked like Dune or Command and Conquer or like a game like that.
Yeah, and they had a lot of games over there that weren't released here, which is really cool.
And I had no clue what it was.
Oh, yeah.
It was like this other bizarro Nintendo system. Because, if I would have seen a Mario game, sitting near it, I would have known.
Made the connection, yeah.
But I was at the Einkaufszentrum in Regensburg, Germany, and I found this Phantom Nintendo console, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this?
And that's probably pre-internet, right?
It's 1995. I'm 11.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, I'm in this foreign country. They have a different Nintendo, where a lot of the games are the same, but not what they marketed. They pushed completely different titles. But the European version of this has all the same games. Mm-hmm. You have to get into the Japanese version to get different games.
Oh, just like the NES Classic, with the Famicom had some different titles. This also has some different titles. Okay.
So the European version of this has the European shell, but the same games.
So speaking of the games, let's go down the list. This is the North American version, just for people watching, because we have people watching all over the world. So for the North American version of this SNES Classic, there is Contra III: The Alien Wars, which Contra III: The Alien Wars. I do these playthrough videos where I practice games first. I would say that's probably the hardest one I've done, other than maybe Dragon's Lair. That game, and I specifically mean playing it on hard, because the difference between playing it on normal and then playing it on hard, it's like playing it on easy, playing it on normal, playing it on hard.
It's a
big gap.
Yeah.
But that is an awesome game. I totally recommend playing Contra 3. Great. Donkey Kong Country. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's fun to play.
Yeah, it's, classic. Earthbound,
Yeah.
Final Fantasy, which Earthbound's a great purchase because, like we said, it's a $200-$300 game to get. It's like that right there, you get your money's worth. Final Fantasy III, maybe my favorite Super Nintendo game. Even above,
it's so epic.
It might even be above Link to the Past for me.
Wow.
Or on even plane. I love that game.
I think there's a lot to Final Fantasy 3 too. It's a very deep game for the system. There's a lot character customization and things to find and do.
It's my favorite RPG. I love it. F-Zero, again,
great,
it's like
amazing racing game.
It's one of the best games ever. You got your Kirby games, Kirby's Dreams Course, Kirby Superstar. Those are good. Mega Man X. I mean, listen, I'm just listing off the most classic games ever. Secret of Mana.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what more do you want? Star Fox, Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It's like the good versions, the one you want.
Yeah.
Hyper Fighting, Super Castlevania IV, awesome. Ghouls and Ghosts. Ghouls and Ghosts is a beautiful earlier Super Nintendo game. I love how that game looks.
And that's a game that it's simple. Your character doesn't have many abilities. It's very simple, but the goodness from Ghouls and Ghosts comes from playing it and triumphing over the difficulty. Because it's hard, you have to be disciplined, you have to know your character.
Just that game alone, you can have fun with this purchase for the rest of your life because, or years, because if you've never played the game, because it's so difficult, it'll take you a while to get through that game.
Yeah.
What else do we got? We got Super Mario Kart. I just said Final Fantasy III. I'm sorry. Super Mario Kart is my favorite Super Nintendo game. That's my favorite. And then probably Link to the Past and Final Fantasy III.
It's really a testament to Mario Kart that people are still playing the game competitively.
Yeah.
Today. There are people who still come back to that.
Most people prefer the N64 version.
Right.
I love them both. But as far as Super Nintendo games, I played more Super Mario Kart than any other Super Nintendo game, and I love that game. Super Mario RPG, Legend of Seven Stars. Again, Ryan said that's
I want to play it.
Yeah.
I want to start playing it. It's interesting. That was one of the last partnerships between Squaresoft and Nintendo before, Squaresoft went and made Final Fantasy VII on Sony and arguably changed the direction of the video game industry forever. So that is a very important title because it's it almost represents the end of an era.
And I'm almost going to laugh with our next game on the list. Super Mario World, a little game called Super Mario World.
Well, it's all right.
Okay, yeah, right?
Yeah, it's great.
We don't need to say anything. Super Metroid, again, what do you say? Yeah, Super Punch-Out, awesome. Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, one of the a lot of people consider that the best video game of all time.
Right.
It's James's favorite video game. And Yoshi's Island, also amazing. Yoshi's Island is harder than Super Mario World. Excellent game. It does have the annoying baby, which would have been a nice option on this if they would have made an option where you could turn the baby sound off, because people have been asking for that for years. But, Yoshi's Island is an awesome game. This is a great package.
Star Fox 2. It's about time. The game sat completed for years and years and years. It's about time that people get to play it in a legal way, in a official release. Yeah, this thing's awesome. If Nintendo is not lying and they're gonna have this is gonna be available for the holidays, gamers of any era should find this under their tree. If the supply is bad, well, that's bad.
And I do have to say, in our original announcement video of this, the one thing that we did say was, hey, Nintendo, you really need to release more of the NES Classic. We're upset about this. They did announce after that they are going to, in fact, supposedly be releasing more of the NES Classic at some point. I think it said over the summer, but I'm not sure. So they will be doing it, so that's good. I guess last but not least, what's coming after this? Like I said, I'd like to see the Game Boy.
I think it's going to be N64.
I'm sure it's going to be N64.
I would like to see the Game Boy, but I think it's going to be N64. I'm wondering if they do GameCube. That would be strange.
It would be strange. They probably, if these things are selling like hotcakes, they'll find a way. So I guess we most likely are going to be looking at the N64 Classic next year, which will be really interesting. I'll be really curious to know what picks they're gonna choose for that. But
it's easier.
We did a video about Nintendo 64, and we found a lot of games on that. They can go back and they can look at our video and get the picks.
I mean, like, a 30-game N64 collection is giving you the
majority of the great games
stuff.
Yeah,
on the
it's not like the NES, where the NES had so many great games, and I with the NES Classic, I felt there was a lot missing. The SNES Classic, less so. This is a better collection.
By the time you get to N64, GameCube, whatever, it's like
there's less.
Game budgets had gotten to the point where releases were far enough apart that a console generation may only see 30 amazing games.
I mean, by the way, are we gonna get like a Wii Classic and it's all gonna be like shovelware?
Yeah, it's like the Wii Classic. It's all like games you buy at Five Below.
Yeah,
it's
no,
like,
they could
take care of the baby.
They could do a Wii Classic actually, because there's enough good games. But yeah, there was a lot of shovelware on the system.
Yeah.
Anyhow, totally recommended if you can get your hands on it, pick up the SNES Classic.